actors or actresses, I think Michael Jordan and Air Jordans back in the day. And today, an influencer could be anybody. Could be you or me if we want it to be. But there are certainly big influencers out in the world. We try to get an accurate measurement of how many are out there. Best estimate somewhere in the 1.5 to 2 million range. And the issue that we've always had is trying to understand how to measure influencers, how good they are at driving impact to a brand. And we'd like to share our research today with you. Lisa will go through it as to what we did to show the impact of influencers, how they're changing, how they're growing, and their role in marketing today.
So the data that we used for this case study is not stated, it's not survey data, it's passively observed behavioral data. So this means consumers have opted in, they agree to share everything they're doing on their digital devices, so we see everything. That means the apps they're opening, the websites they're going to, the searches they're making, what they're shopping for within retailer apps, and most importantly for this case study, what is the content that they are viewing within social media apps. So we see every post that they're seeing, who the author is, what the content is, if they're engaging with it, and then everything's timestamped, so we're able to then measure and see past that of do they actually go and engage with a brand afterwards. And keep in mind, none of this is stated, what did you do? It's all observed data. So thinking about this data, what's up on the screen is what we've observed from these 4 platforms. And here you can just see the number of app opens per day and the number of posts viewed per day. So on average, take TikTok for example, people are opening that app 10 times a day and they're seeing 135 to 140 posts on average. If you look all the way at the other side, YouTube, 12 app opens per day and they're viewing about 30 to 35 posts per day. Those videos tend to be a little bit longer than TikTok, so less videos, but this is actual observed data, not any stated data that people would be trying to recall how many things they actually saw. So if we take today's influencers, as Andrew said, there's so many of them out there today, and they actually have a really big following. If you look at some of these, like Kylie Jenner, she has almost 400 million followers. There may be names up here that you know, and there may be names that you don't know, because everybody out there is trying to make a name for themselves as an influencer or as a creator. So the brands that we explored, some of them are up on the screen. This isn't all of them that we looked at. And then we also looked at over 100 different influencers to measure the effectiveness and see, what's going on when it comes to social ads. So just to pick on 2 influencers for a minute and kind of explain how we measured this. Kylie Jenner. We observed people that were looking at her content, and then we said, what do they do after looking at her content? We saw that 56% of people, after seeing one of her posts, were doing some sort of shopping event. And for Mr. Beast, that was 36%. So these influencers that have a huge following also are getting people that are shopping directly after seeing those posts. So what we set out to do was say, okay, well, let's look at specific brands. What happens when someone's exposed to an influencer's content for a specific brand? And then, do they engage with that specific brand? Whoops, sorry. So the ones I want to share with you today is the QSR industry. There's 5 brands up here. You can see that they have really different sort of exposure strategies here. So this is their observed strategies. So Domino's over on the left is very heavy paid exposures that we observed, where all the way over on the right is Chipotle, and they have very heavy brand influencer exposures. And you see there's a spectrum in the middle as well. And so what we did is we measured conversion. So after being exposed to content on social media, did people actually engage with the brand? And by engaged, we mean, did they actually go to the restaurant, or did they actually open the app and spend time on that app? And what we found here is the conversion rates that you're seeing across the bottom of the screen. They're not in order. There's not one exposure strategy that actually does better than the other one. It's very different. So we're gonna go into 3 here and walk you through those.
So as Lisa was saying, we went through, picked out a few different brands, almost to look at the different types of different exposures that we saw. So as Lisa mentioned, on Domino's, super heavy on paid and organic traffic. We'll go into them in a little bit of detail. I kind of dubbed them more traditional marketers, kind of doing what you would normally do in the past, not necessarily embracing influencers to the same degree as others. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have Chipotle, who are going heavy into influencers, at least from the exposures that we observed. So just to be clear, we're passively observing what people are seeing, not necessarily what people are spending on ads, right? So Chipotle could be spending a bunch on other areas that we're not seeing. It's just the effect of those ads showing up people's eyeballs, and then from those eyeballs, are they actually going and engaging with that brand? So if we look at Domino's, as we mentioned, very heavy in paid marketing. We observed at least 1.5 times more paid exposures with a Domino's than anywhere other brand in the category. Also saw a lot more exposures. My hypothesis, doing a lot more retargeting from what we could see within that area, picking people up on their sites, getting into social and retargeting with them in ads. One thing that popped out was the ability, the conversion of their organic traffic. So the folks that actually take the time, like their pages, follow their content, much higher conversion than any other method for Domino's. And that was actually a theme that we observed throughout. If you look at Chipotle, much heavier in terms of influencer exposures that we saw, at least almost 3 times anywhere else. Definitely embracing influencer as a form of marketing in terms of driving conversion to their store, and it's working, right? So their highest channel in terms of exposure is also leading to their highest conversion rate across all channels. So influencer is more effective than both organic and paid media for Chipotle, even better than organic, which I think is really interesting. And still spending about a quarter of everybody else on paid. So really going heavy into the influencer spend. And Lisa will take you through the last example, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, so the last one is Subway. So when it comes to Subway as a brand, Subway is a brand that's really embraced the idea of influencers forever, right? Like when we think about who the first influencer for Subway was, we had Jared. And they're continuing to really embrace those influencers. What we see here is a very diversified ad exposures that we were picking up on, a mix of paid, a mix of influencer, and still having that organic as well. But the influencer conversion rate is 11.3% compared to their paid at 3.8%. And they're receiving, half as many influencer exposures, but yet still the highest conversion rate, which was very interesting. So we wanted to dig in deeper and say, what's going on with Subway? Like, what can we find out about their influencer strategy, or what's working or what's not working? And when we did that, we found Jordan the Stallion. How many of you have heard of Jordan the Stallion? Okay, a few of you. This video for Jordan the Stallion, and I'm gonna play it here in a second, it has a 35% conversion rate for Subway. And what we observed is within 5 hours, people were seeing this video and ending up at a Subway or going to the Subway app. That is really quick. Their paid is 3.5% conversion rate, and that's taking 16 hours. So this one video, and if we play it on the screen here, yeah.
So here's what the nachos look like. You have your Doritos, cheese, jalapenos, tomatoes, onions, and your choice of rotisserie style chicken or steak. Now again, I have not had nachos in a long time, so we'll give it a try. Okay, let's give it a try. Maybe I need to start eating nachos again. Now, mind you, these go for $5 and they're for a limited time only, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm gonna start working on my nacho skills. I gotta start eating nachos again here.
So this one video has been driving Subway's conversion for the last month, 2 months. This was posted in the end of April. And so what does that mean? And
so here's what...
So real quick, before we go into what it means, organic marketing. We did talk a lot about that real quick. Andrew mentioned it a little bit when we were talking about Domino's, but organic marketing is something that we observed every brand having a little bit of. They have a few followers on it. We tend to see that these followers have pretty high conversion rates as well. They are the loyal followers. They're the ones that were engaging with the brands before. They're the ones that were engaging with the brands after the fact. And it's definitely sort of this table stake to continue that following for most of these brands is what we observed. Now I'll pass it over to Andrew for the key takeaways.
Cool. So as we observed, I think it's clear to see like there's not really one strategy that works for everybody. I think everybody's doing things a little bit differently. And I think if you look deep within marketing teams, they're all trying to really figure out the best way to do it. A lot of people do what they know. A lot of people are willing to experiment. It's the same in real life. And I think the key is to be able to measure that in some way. The other thing that we observed, if you saw Joey the Stallion, obviously as a real use case, like getting an influencer that resonates with your brand, that resonates with your people, is critically important. So you'd be spending a bunch of money on influencers that may be posting your content, but they're not actually driving actual engagement with your brand, and that's something to watch out for. We can also, in our world, help brands understand which influencers are actually driving traffic to their actual brands, because not all influencer traffic is paid. Influencers still influence whether they're actually paid or not, and we can see the ones that are bubbling up for certain brands. And then measuring always, because people are people. Who they are, how they represent your brand. It happens with celebrities. People drop celebrities because of what's happening in real life. The same thing is going to happen with regular influencers, and a lot more, because you're dealing with regular people with regular lives, but influencing your brand. We've seen other trends out there, like people who are de-influencers, so people that are trying to get you to stop buying stuff, and they're becoming just as popular as people that are influencing you to buy stuff. So my wife actually told me about it. She's like, you're talking on influencers, but there's a bigger trend out there right now, and so we looked into it, and there's people with hundreds of thousands of followers getting people to stop buying products out there too. So being able to measure that, being able to understand who those influencers are that are driving impact, to pick the right ones, are really critical to driving success, I think, across all your strategies moving forward. I think the other thing would be putting money into kind of your organic people, into your fans, the people that are using your apps, the people that are your loyal customers that have loyalty with your brand. They're definitely your best customers along the way. But using influencers to get there, to drive people towards your brand, certainly becoming more popular, and I think probably the way of the future, and being able to measure it is why we're here. So, thank you. I'll open up to some questions.
Yeah.
I know this is about influencers. I know this is about influencers, but influencers aside, I'm really interested in the means by which you measure the effectiveness. You talked about having access to people's phones. I suppose that's Android only. But how do you go about actually recognizing who's being served an ad, where they've been served, how many times they've been served? Can you talk a little bit about that piece of it?
Yeah, sure, I can. So the way that the technology works, people opt in, and then we're able to see everything that they're seeing on their screen through them enabling permissions for us. So we're able to capture all the text that's on their screen and every click that they make, and it's all time-stamped. So in this case, we're able to see, like for the Jordan the Stallion, we see the author's name, we see any post, and then we can go and we can find the video that matches that text in that post and be able to connect that. The same thing we'll see every time they open an app that gets recorded in our data, and then we can say, oh, they did open that Subway app. Or we also see geolocation, which says, ooh, they did also visit that Subway. And so we can just connect all of that based on timestamps and measure sort of like after seeing this ad, what did people do and how long did it take them to do it?
At a high level, people are getting paid for their data. So instead of coming in, joining a panel to get profile, take a survey, qualify, and then get paid, you're coming in, you're sharing your data, you're getting paid for passively sharing that data. And once you're in, that data is being collected continuously all the time. And the best way to think about it is like a Nielsen measurement panel, basically. So like a Nielsen mobile or Nielsen online with some shopping capability in there. And it does go beyond Android into iOS. You don't see in-app data in iOS, but you see where they're going in person, what apps they're using, what websites they're using, and can bring that into your analysis. But the in-depth influencer stuff, you can't see that necessarily within an iOS device.
Yeah, go ahead in the back.
I think when you think of influencer marketing, a lot of people think about younger ages and demographics. So did you look at it by age, and were there any differences with conversion there?
That's a great question. We actually did not look at it by age, but it's absolutely something we can do. So the behavioral panel that we have spans all ages and is very representative of the US demographics. So that could be the next piece that we do here to kind of look at that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Have you looked into forecasting any behavioral data in the sense that like somebody is using an app and comes today and sort of what's going on? Could you use that information to forecast what you usually how much you could use the app for this season or especially seasonality and environments? Because if human behaviors are pretty visual, so if you know past behaviors, assuming there's future behaviors.
Yeah, I think you absolutely could use the data in that way. We're able to trend it and see, what happened last year, like you said, around the holiday season, and what are those patterns that people are having. You start to see trends and upticks in things that are like hot or like trending products all the time, and so you can start to forecast that out and predict that based on previous behaviors.
Yeah, you can do, the beauty of the data being collected all the time is you can go back in the past and look and see why things trended and why other things happened as well, or you see a spike in a product sale and like what can you attribute that to? And we've had some of those examples come in where we're able to attribute to a certain influencer, a certain post, or that's driving like sales outcomes for brands and things like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just curious, how long does your field last? Is it like during a certain how a campaign was running, or is it a few months? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so for this specific case study, we measured it from like May 1st through a couple weeks ago. And so, but our data is always on and always tracking, so we can go back up to like 2 years and look at anything that's happened in the past, and it's always going, and it collects everything. So we're able to dive in and kind of answer any kind of question that we want off of it.
So one other question, can you target geographically? If I just wanted, let's say, New Jersey, could you target that way as well?
Yeah, so the one thing we do ask people to do when they join and give us permission to collect their data is take a brief screener. So that's your demographics only, but we don't do any other profiling. All the other profiling is done off of behaviors because that's really indicative of who these people are. But we do, so geography, ethnicity, any sort of demographic that you'd want to target, we can do.
The profiling is interesting actually because the way panels profile people today, you come in and you ask people their hobbies and interests and where they what social media they're using or what retail outlets they're going to. And we're just using the passive data to continually dynamically profile people all the time without having to engage with them. So we know your social media behaviors, we know you're interested in golf because you go to golf courses and buy golf products and watch golf videos all the time on TikTok. And that's a stronger predictor of who you are as well. So really helps to profile any set of users that you can observe passively without having to do a lot of research with them as well. But if you did want to engage with people in surveys in the traditional sense, you can also do that, target based on behavior, and then append behavioral data to the survey data so that you can enrich the analysis and add in kind of known behavior of people rather than asking a series of grid questions or, what did you do on Facebook last month and how many hours did you use and how many times, when you can just bring that in on a person level and be more accurate.
Is this something you do on a case-by-case basis? So like I post an ad, I want to see it, or can I go in and look anytime what's happening?
So we can go in anytime and look what's happening. We just kind of have to know what we're looking for. So the it's huge. There's terabytes and terabytes of data. And so it's just like having an objective to dive in and kind of measure what you want to measure.
So you don't have to give us creatives or, have us put a pixel or anything on there. If you're a brand and you have advertising going on social, we will see that in some way. Or if you're using influencers in some way, we'll see that through the content they're viewing or through their captions, if they're a paid partner or things like that.
Can you look at competitors?
Correct. You can.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it. Like you saw, a whole slew of brands in QSR. We could have picked another 10 and put them up there. And in the world of marketing, like knowing what someone else is doing, what's working for them, what's driving it for them, that's all in the data for sure.
Yeah.
Piggybacking the question about the age differences, did you notice any difference in conversion based off of one app over the other? For instance, TikTok over YouTube?
No, but again, that's something we could absolutely do. I think it also depends on, the influencer and the influencer's app of choice. So when we were looking at the influencers, a lot of them tend to stick to one platform with most of their ads, right? And so it really depends on what influencer, more so I think on the platform, but we could look at it based on platform, so that's in the data as well. Yeah.
Any constraints on the size of the following of the influencers? Because there's a lot of conversation about micro-influencers and mid-size influencers, so what can you capture this panel? I would assume the big ones, right?
Yeah, I would say the big ones right now, in terms of the influencer content.
Yeah.
We definitely looked at a ton of different influencers, and some of them had, a smaller number of exposures and stuff like that. But even with the smaller, we can see what's happening with it, and even look at it more as less of a quantitative read and more of a directional read. So you do see kind of how they're engaging. Are they resharing? Are they liking? Are they posting? We see all of that sort of engagement with them.
It's like any ad campaign, though. It depends on the number of impressions, basically. So how many eyeballs get to see that particular post, how viral it is, and where it goes, that all impacts what you see. We track 150,000 people every day. So in that number, you can imagine, you see a lot more than you think because you're seeing every action. But there is a size limit. We're scaling. As you get bigger, you'll see smaller things. Same goes for geography or really niche sites or really niche apps and things like that. But you could also, in those cases, build your own behavioral data, like first-party data. If you wanted to create this kind of data for yourself, that's also possible, especially for more niche audiences and things like that.
Yeah.
What kind of incentives are required to get folks to agree to opt in and interact like this?
Yeah, good question. Depends on the app. We have our own app. We pay people about $3 to $5 a month passively for not doing anything other than just using their phone. But we're starting to integrate with other people's apps that offer their own relevant currency. So it could be content in exchange for your data, or mileage plus currency for your data, or different loyalty programs. It's really about giving people value for their data, or some, value can be determined in a lot of ways. It could be better personalized content or more premium content that you don't get elsewhere. But So right now they get that $3 to $5, but we're expanding out how people get paid and how many people can be tracked in that way.
And we've tested higher incentives as well, and
Yeah.
we didn't need them.
We had twice the amount, like at one point, like 2-3 years ago, we tested giving them half. It was the same conversion all the way through. And in my whole life, I used to do a lot of A/B testing on Nielsen panels and things like that. So some experience in understanding what motivates people to do it. In that way, the idea behind like expanding how people get paid is to expand the type of people that will do this, right? In the same way you do so with online panels. And in fact, when eRewards brought in different loyalty programs, I think the same concept applies here. You get different people, different apps, different loyalty programs, and in that way you got a much more diverse audience.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Just related to loyalty programs or online communities, could you, if I have my own online community, could you use them as a recruiter?
Yeah, I think it's actually the best online community that exists because you learn about them without having to ask them any questions all the time, right? So you see their entire behaviors, but in the way that we profile people as well, like you get to understand them in like the ways that you would normally ask questions just to see who they are to begin with, right? And so if you have that as your base, as a custom community, then just engaging with them with content that's really relevant for what you want, rather than just understanding them, I think it's super powerful. Yeah. And we can stand up like custom panels for people or have white label apps and things like that, so make life easy for you, because building behavioral is not necessarily super easy.
Yeah, I think we are about out of time, but if you guys have more questions, definitely happy to stick around, or you can meet us over at our booth and we can answer more.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.